The scented smoke of the god's wood brazier drifted through the cold air of Winterfell like ghost-thin ribbons, vanishing into the branches of the heart tree that loomed above Lord Eddard Stark's bowed head. He knelt in the damp earth, sword set before him, pale hands clasped around the worn leather of Ice's grip. Snowflakes, gentle miniature feathers, landed on the steel, hissed, and died. When the words came, they slipped past lips, chapped by days of silence and thought. "I will not kneel to a bastard seed," Ned whispered to the red leaves. "I will not stand idle while Robert's true heir is cast aside." His voice did not quake, though his breath fogged in the frost. Somewhere beyond the palisade a direwolf howled, and he felt it in his bones the way sailors feel a gathering tide. Dawn came crimson on the battlements, and with it, Ned Stark's resolve. He strode from the god's wood, cloak billowing, the frost crunching beneath his boots. In the great hall, banners of the direwolf hung mute above long trestle tables. Robb waited at the high seat, flanked by Theon and Sir Roderick. Maester Luwin stood near the hearth, hands folded in stiff gray sleeves. All eyes turned as Winterfell's lord laid ice across the dais, the sound of steel on wood sharp as any trumpet call. "Summon the Lord's bannermen," Ned said, voice carrying. "Send ravens to every holdfast from the White Knife to the Shadow Tower. We ride south in a fortnight." Robb's breath caught. South? To King's Landing? Not to kneel. Ned's jaw tightened. To Crown. Across the hall, the hearth snapped, as though in answer. Maester Luwin, wise in cautious counsel, stepped forward. "Lord Stark, may I ask, to crown whom?" "Stannis Baratheon," Ned said. The name fell like an axe stroke. Trueborn brother to King Robert, rightful heir of House Baratheon. I declared it in private once. Now I declare it before the gods in the north. Gasps rippled. Theon Greyjoy's quick grin twisted, admiring and sly. But Sir Roderick's white whiskers bristled with uneasy pride. Robb simply stared, the boy in him warring with the lord he was meant to become. "Word will race south faster than any raven," Luwin warned. "The Queen will not sit idle." "Nor will I," Ned answered, turning for the doors. "See to the messages, Maester." "Robb, call the banners." The ravens left Winterfell feather bright against the dawn, and within days riders thundered over the snowy hills. Small folk lined the approach roads, watching with wide eyes as torrent after torrent of steel-clad Northmen poured through the gates. Karstark spearmen, tall hard archers, grim men of the Dreadfort, bearing the flayed man's sigil, though even Roose Bolton's men kept their knives sheathed in Winterfell's yard. When the Manderleys arrived, tall banners of the White Mermen snapping above their column, Ned stood atop the battlements, cloak lifting in the wind, and felt the weight of centuries settle on his shoulders. He prayed he was worthy. At every council table stern debate roared. The risk of southern traps, the bitterness of broken oaths sworn to King Robert's children, the uncertain loyalties of river lords whose lands they must pass. Yet each argument ended the same. The bastard boy, Joffrey Baratheon, was no true king, and the dragon skulls in the Red Keep would be nothing beside the wrath of the North should Cersei raise a blade against Ned Stark's honor. Robb spoke little, but listened much, absorbing the cadence of command. On the eve of departure, he found his father at the armory, watching smiths rivet fresh mail. "Father," Robb began, voice low, "will Catelyn be safe on the road to River Run?" "She travels with a strong escort," Ned said, though shadows rimmed his gray eyes. "Your mother will fare better beneath her father's roof than at King's Landing with vipers for courtiers." He paused, laid a gauntleted hand on his son's shoulder. "You will march at my side, Robb. Winterfell's host follows us both." Robb straightened. "I will make you proud. Only keep your head when the world loses theirs," Ned muttered, half to himself. "Pride is for peacetime. We march for duty." Catelyn Stark rode from Winterfell 4 days before the host, bearing her husband's letters to River Run and beyond. Her farewell to Ned was whispered at dawn beneath a white sky. He kissed her brow, the scar beside her temple, and said no promises. That was not his way. Yet, as her column vanished through the Hunter's Gate, he stood watching until the banners were eaten by snow-bright distance. Thus did Winterfell empty. Forges grew silent, kennels lonely, and even the hot pool steamed in restless solitude as the North's strength unfurled like a spear toward the neck. Many a lord left wives to govern keeps, children to tend hearths, and every man who marched bore 2 oaths. One north to Winterfell, one south to Stannis Baratheon. Snow gave way to wet earth as the army tramped southward. The Darrow wolves, gray wind, Shaggy Dog in summer, loped at the vanguard, eyes glinting. Small folk gathered by the king's road, some cheering, some silent with dread. There had been no northern host south of Moat Cailin since Torrhen Stark bent the knee to Aegon Targaryen, 3 centuries gone. Now the old songs breathed again in campfires at dusk. On the high ridge north of the Twins, Ned called his captains. Maps unrolled atop a trestle, ink gleaming by torchlight. Karstark urged a hard march through the Riverlands before Lannister armies could converge. Manderley counseled negotiation with Hoster Tully to secure crossings. Bolton, voice soft as falling ash, proposed sending swift riders to whisper northern wrath into the ears of the small folk of the Trident. "We do not need whispers, Lord Bolton," Ned said. "We need bridges and bread." He tapped the map. "E. We cross at the Twins. Lord Walder craves coin more than blood. We shall give him gold and the promise of Stannis' crown." Bolton's pale eyes flickered. "As you command, Lord Stark." That night, as harp music drifted through the command tent, Theon Greyjoy swaggered in, ale sloshing over his boots. "Walder Frey will bleed you for every stag you carry," he laughed. "Better to put his keep to the torch and take the crossing." Ned stared until the laughter died. "I will not buy the future on a river of innocence." Outside, snow began to fall again, fine as sifted flour. Far south and east, on the basalt cliffs of Dragonstone, Lord Stannis Baratheon stood upon the stone drum's windy parapet, reading the Raven's parchment by flickering torch. His gaunt face betrayed no joy. Stannis seldom did, but his knuckles whitened. At his shoulder, Maester Cresson peered at the Stark seal. "He makes his stand at last," Cresson said softly. "Too late for Robert." Stannis crumpled the message. "But perhaps not too late for the realm. Send birds to Storm's End, to the Marcher Lords, to every honest knight who still remembers oaths older than Cersei's lies. Tell them Eddard Stark rides south beneath my banner." "And Lord Renley?" Stannis' jaw clenched. "Renley plays at courtly pageants, while lions sharpen claws. Let him keep his peaches and silk. We speak of iron and duty." He turned away, cloak whipping in the salt wind. Beyond, black waves hammered the cliffs, unyielding, relentless, much like Stannis himself. In King's Landing, the small council met in frantic secrecy. Varys the spider perched like a soft-voiced crow beside the rush-strewn floor. Grand Maester Pycelle wheezed that winter snows would mire the northern host long before it reached the Trident. Littlefinger smirked behind fingers, steepled in mock prayer. Cersei Lannister, crowned queen beside her necklace of golden lions, listened with eyes cold as beaten copper. "A Stark army marches under a Baratheon banner," she said. "One northern sword is flint, 10,000 are wildfire. What does your spider's whisper say, Lord Varys?" "That Lord Stark's honor is a rock in a rushing river." Varys sighed. "It may divert the current, your grace, but water ever finds a way. He trusts too easily, proclaims too openly. Such a man leaves marks that quieter men may follow." "Then follow." The queen snapped. "Send blades in the night if you must. I will not have Ned Stark clanging at my gates while Renly flirts with Reach lords." "Bentren." "Bent." Littlefinger's eyes glittered. Perhaps a subtler coin might be minted. "Walder Frey owes more debts than a Lysine whore. He's ripe to sell, and the Twins are as narrow as a noose." Cersei's smile was thin. "See that the noose tightens, pettier." On the muddy camping ground 2 leagues north of the Twins, tents sprouted like gray mushrooms. The air smelled of horse sweat, river mist, and boiled venison. Ned Stark strode among his men beneath a dull sky, greeting each banner as though it were a memory made flesh. He paused at the Mormont fire, where Lady Mage polished her spiked mace beside her daughters. "Bear Island stands with the North," Mage growled, thumping fist to breastplate. "And the North with Bear Island," Ned replied. He moved on, heart steadier for their fierce presence. That evening, Lord Walder Frey received them in the bridge keep. A cluster of thin-lipped suns lined at his back like ill-made arrows. His gray, watery eyes lingered on ice. "A fine blade," Walder croaked as Ned presented terms. "Yet steel alone won't open my gates." "Gold then," Ned said. He laid a sealed pouch upon the table. "Coin from the Winterfell treasury. And a letter from Lord Stannis promising lordship over all crossings from the Trident to Maidenpool, once he sits the Iron Throne." Walder's eyebrows twitched. "Promises are wind. But the Starks, you're different. So serious. So grim." His tongue wet his lips. "My lord, some of my granddaughters have yet to wed." Ned's patience thinned. "And shall I play merchant of daughters as well as coin?" Walder shrugged. "Old bridges need mortar, Lord Stark. Family is a strong mortar." Across the hall Robb shifted, cheeks reddening, but Ned lifted a hand. "Very well. If Stannis reigns, a Stark and a Frey shall wed within a year of his coronation. Swear on the 7 if you like. Will you open your gates?" The old man's grin showed more gaps than teeth. "They'll open at dawn." Ned inclined his head once, turned, and walked away as Walder chuckled behind him. That night Ned dreamed of strange, dark waters rushing beneath the twins' arches, and in the currents he saw faces pale and floating. Faces he could not name. He woke cold and sleepless beneath a sky of iron. The crossing was slow. Wagons creaked over planks slick with frost. Hooves skidded. Soldiers muttered. Yet by sunset, the northern host stood on southern soil, camped amid the tall green willows of the riverlands. Crows wheeled overhead. Smoke coils from distant farmsteads betrayed unseen hearths. Robb Stark walked the perimeter with gray wind at heel. The dire wolf's hackles rose often, ears pricked to some dread beyond men. When they returned to the command tent, Robb spoke low. "Something stalks us, father. I feel it in gray wind." Ned looked to the darkening tree line. "Fear rides with every army. Keep your wolf close, and your senses sharper still." Within hours, fear found form. A scout galloped from the south, cloak tattered, blood on his cheek. "My lord, Lannister outriders, 10 leagues off. Sir Jaime himself commands them. They sweep the Trident's villages, seizing grain." Whispers ran through the camp like fire on dry grass. Robb's hand fell to his sword. Theon spat a curse. Ned's gaze settled on the map once more. "Jaime rides bold," he said. "If we strike tomorrow at dawn, we break his outriders before they can dig in." Karstark pounded fist to table. "It will show the lion how the wolf bites." Bolton's voice slithered. "A swift assault risks ambush. Knives in moonlight cost fewer lives than spears at sunrise." Ned's eyes were flint. "Knives are for cowards. We face them in the open." And so, before the campfires had burned to embers, horns sounded the order. Make ready for battle at first light. Men sharpened axes, prayed, or sang low northern psalms that spoke of ice and honor, and the long night's watch. Snow began again, gray and silent, cloaking tents in hush. Ned Stark walked between ranks, his shadow mingling with those of his soldiers, and all along the camp the whisper spread. They were marching not merely for a king's crown, but for the old truth that oaths meant something still under cold stars. Dawn bled scarlet across the fields of tumbling reeds. The Trident lay mist-veiled, a serpent of steel beneath a pale sun. Ned Stark's banners rippled, gray direwolf on white, while across the river a crimson tide of lions formed ranks. Sir Jaime Lannister rode a dappled courser, armor bright as a forge. He raised golden helm in salute, hair like sunlight, smile like broken glass. The charge sounded. Arrows hissed overhead, striking shields with wooden thuds. Northern spears braced. Horses screamed. Snow and mud churned into flying ruin. Ned Stark, astride a heavy courser, rode beneath flying banners, ice held high. Voices filled his ears. "Stark! Stark, and beneath the fainter roar, "Stannis! Stannis!" Man. Steel met steel. Time fractured into small shards of sight. Karstark's axe cleaving a gilded helm. Theon's laughter as he loosed a flaming arrow into a siege cart. Robb dismounting to duel a red-plumed knight, gray wind snapping at the man's throat. At the battle's height, Ned found himself face to face with Jaime Lannister amid a swirl of smoke. The lion's sword was Valyrian bright, strokes fluid, each movement a dancer's grace. Ned parried thrice, felt the shock of impact jar his arm to the shoulder. Jaime's grin widened. "I had hoped for King's Landing," Jaime called above the din. "But here will do. You'll find no children to stab here," Ned rasped, driving forward. Steel rang, once twice, ice's broad edge hammering against Jaime's speed. They traded blows beneath falling snow until a northern spear forced Jaime back, the lion wheeling away in a shower of mud. Ned, chest heaving, tasted iron and cold on his tongue. He raised his sword, but the Kingslayer vanished into milling cavalry. When the horn of retreat sounded, the lions fell back across the Trident, leaving churned earth strewn with banners. Cheers erupted from northern ranks. Yet victory tasted of ashes when Ned walked the field. He counted the dead. Boys barely bearded, men whose names his maester had just inked into pay ledgers, Karstark kin, a score of tall-heart spearmen, and beside a broken oak lay Sir Roderick, gray whiskers matted red. Ned knelt, closed the old knight's eyes, and felt the first true weight of war descend upon him. That night fires burned high, casting long shadows on the pines. The North's captains gathered around Ned. Robb's knuckles were raw where he'd gripped his sword. Theon's laughter was subdued. Bolton's hooded gaze studied the flames. "What word from Dragonstone?" Manderley asked. "Stannis writes that Storm's End pledges men," Ned said. He tapped Stannis' letter, ink still fresh. "He sails for the Blackwater within the Moo's turn. We march to River Run, join with my brother-in-law and the River Lords, and together we strike at the capital." Karstark's eyes gleamed. "Let the Trident run red again then." Bolton's smile was a thin slash. "A red river washes away many sins." In the quiet that followed, Ned watched sparks whirl into the night sky, vanishing among pale stars. Beyond, in the darkness between fires, gray wind howled. Long, low, and mournful, as if seeing wars yet unfought. Ned Stark turned his face into the cold wind and wondered how many howls the night could bear before the dawn would finally break upon a realm remade. The days that followed were a slow advance through charred hamlets and trampled wheat. Small folk fled south ahead of the armies, cartwheels rattling over broken roads. At each village Ned left coin and grain, though his own stores thinned. He slept little, stalked by memories of Roderick's still face, by dreams of black ships on cold seas and crows wheeling over crimson fields. One evening outside River Run's gates, as campfires glittered under a sky of hammered copper, a rider approached. His surcoat bore a crowned stag within a fiery heart. Stannis' sigil, but altered. Ned's brow furrowed as the man dismounted, eyes bright with a strange zeal. "My Lord Stark," the rider said, bowing. "I am Sir Davos Seaworth. Lord Stannis bids me bring you tidings. He has taken the Stepstones, shattered a Lysene fleet, and now sails up Blackwater Bay." "Now, good news." Ned inclined his head, yet his gaze returned to the fiery heart. "What sigil do you wear, sir?" "The Lord's new banner," Davos said, voice low. "The heart of our lore, the Red God, whose priestess walks at Stannis' side." Cold trickled through Ned's veins. "Stannis serves the Seven." "Lord Stannis serves duty," Davos murmured. "As you do. If the Red God grants him victory, gods are no coin to be bartered." Ned's tone cut. He gestured to Robb. "See Sir Davos to a tent. Send him bread and salt. We talk at dawn." That night Ned brooded over maps, yet his eyes often strayed to the flicker of the candle, its flame dancing red and gold. Outside, the direwolves prowled the perimeter, uneasy. Something dark pressed at the edge of the world, as if old powers stirred beneath the crust of war. Still, Ned Stark clung to the thin steel of mortal duty. Oaths, honor, the keeping of the realm from Lannister claws. Riverrun's portcullis rattled skyward at sunrise, and Hoster Tully embraced his son-in-law upon the muddy yard. Catelyn stood beside her father, eyes bright with relief at seeing Ned alive. Yet the greeting was brief. War leaves little room for tenderness. Within the Solar, river lords argued beneath dusty banners, clearing Lannister sieges from their lands, protecting harvests, striking first at Harrenhal or King's Landing. "We cannot sit," Ned said, voice of flint striking steel. "Each day the Queen's spider spins lies. When Stannis lands, we join his host before the gates." Edmure Tully pounded the table. "And who guards the Riverlands when we march?" "Those who have bled under Lannister swords long enough," Ned said. He met each face in turn. "I ask no one to march alone. We bind the Northern Riverlands in common cause, then ride for justice. A realm divided feeds only wolves and lions. Let us give it a king instead." Silence followed, heavy as the river itself. Then Hoster Tully nodded, old eyes fierce. "You have my swords, Lord Stark." One by one the river lords bent the knee. Blackwood, Vance, Bracken, Mallister, until the hall rang with oath and echo. That night, as Ned stood upon Riverrun's battlements, Catelyn came beside him. Her cloak fluttered in cool wind off the Red Fork. "You ride tomorrow?" she asked. "The day after," he answered, though he wished for a week, a year, a lifetime. He took her hand. "The path narrows, Cat. Each step feels like standing on a blade." "Better the blade you know," she whispered. She leaned against him, and for a heartbeat, the war receded. Below, torches flickered along the ramparts. Somewhere in the dark, a lone wolf howled. King's Landing woke to thunder on the bay. Black water waves churned beneath gray sky as 5 galleys rowed hard for the river mouth, Stannis-crowned stag flags streaming. Atop the ramparts, Joffrey Baratheon, Boy King, Lion Cub, peered through iron-bound crenels, small hands gripping the stone. Cersei stood beside him, lips pale. Within the Red Keep, bells clanged, gold cloaks scurried, and the smell of melted pitch drifted on hot air. In the Tower of the Hand, Varys whispered to Littlefinger that the game now turned to wildfire and steel. Elsewhere, Renley Baratheon feasted with Tyrell bannermen, emerald cloaks bright, snaring songs and loyalties with easy charm. The city was a nest of knives. Every alley echoed with rumor of the northern host, of a grim lord with a giant sword, of deery wolves that killed in silence. At Maidenpool's crossroads, Ned Stark's combined armies set camp. The banners of Trout and Direwolf snapped beside the crescent moons of House Manderley, the Blackwood of House Blackwood, the flayed man of Bolton. Tens of thousands stirred beneath those colors, a sea of shields awaiting the tide's turn. Robb sat sharpening steel. Theon gambled at dice with Karstark riders. Bolton's men whispered of flayed captive lions. Ned had walked among them, silent as snowfall, gauging morale, listening for cracks. The night before they would march to the Blackwater, he gathered his captains beneath stretched hide. "We are 3 days' ride from King's Landing," he told them. "Stannis lands tomorrow. When we strike as one blade. Jaime's outriders shadow us still," Bolton said. "Cut off the head, the body wanders blind." "There is time enough for heads," Ned replied. "We hold the road to the capital. Stannis pins them from the sea. We drive from the north. The Queen must bend or break." Manderley's heavy laugh filled the tent. "And if she bends, 'twill be beneath the North's heel." Yet as they dispersed, Bolton lingered. His eyes were pale mirrors. "Some say Stannis bends knee to fire priests now," he murmured. "They say he burns the godswood at Dragonstone." Ned's jaw set. "Let tales wait until crowns are set." Bolton's smile was icicle thin. "All the same, a man must choose where to lay his faith." Ned met his gaze. "A man must keep his oaths first." Bolton inclined his head, slipped into the night. Ned watched him go, uneasy. The camp seemed suddenly colder. The wind hissed through spear points, whispering of choices yet unseen. He looked southward, where the sky glimmered faintly red, the reflection of torchlit city walls, or perhaps something older, deeper, burning beyond the horizon. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of ice once more. Tomorrows gathered like storm clouds on a distant ridge, their thunder still unheard, but inevitable. Okay. The night lay thick and starless above Maidenpool, the sort of night that presses sound down into damp earth until even the horses seemed to breathe more softly. Ned Stark walked the picket line alone, cloak dark against darker pines, the cold rising from the loam to settle in his bones like sorrow. Every few strides a sentry saluted. He returned each gesture with a nod. But his thoughts were elsewhere, drifting over bitter waters, through red-lit corridors, to a throne of swords that had torn a kingdom's flesh for too many years. When he closed his eyes, he heard the quick beat of ravens' wings, carrying words of steel and fire from distant Dragonstone, and the slower hush of some older wind that whispered of the Graves' war was even now digging in unseen fields. Robb found him at the outer watchfires, the young man's breath leaving silver wisps that curled into the dark. Gray wind padded at his heel, ears pricked, eyes amber embers in the gloom. Father and son stood a moment without speaking, watching sparks rise and vanish. Then Robb cleared his throat, struggling to pitch his voice low enough that the nearby guards would not hear. "Scouts say Bolton's men spread tales of flaying Lannister prisoners," he murmured. "Some of the river lords are uneasy." Ned did not look away from the fire. Unease keeps men wary. Cruelty rots them. "If Roos's knives go to work again, I will answer in kind." Bolton swore he would obey. Robb pressed, though doubt edged every word. "So he did," Ned said. "Oaths are tinder. The true flame is choice." He laid a gloved hand on his son's shoulder, feeling how lean the boy had grown. "Watch him. Watch them all. A commander trusts, but he sees." That night Ned dreamt of Winterfell flooded by a black tide, the heart tree half submerged, its red leaves floating like blood petals on dark water. Out of the depths rose a stag of shadow, antlers aflame, and upon its back sat a king in a crown of burning swords. The stag charged toward Ned, hooves striking sparks, yet when he raised ice to meet it, the blade melted into smoke, leaving only the cold weight of duty in his empty hands. He woke before dawn, heart hammering, and could not decide whether the dream was warning or promise. At first light horns roused the camp. Mists clung to the rolling downs east of Maidenpool, ghost-gray ribbons that muffled hoofbeats. Columns formed beneath banners soaked in dew. The direwolf of Stark, the trout of Tully, the blackwood tree, the merman, the flayed man, dozens more flickering against a sky the color of old pewter. As the van began to move, a rider thundered from the west, Tyrell colors streaming behind. The man reined up before Ned's guard, helm in hand, cheeks striped by hard gallop. "Message from Lord Renley, your lordship," he called. "He names himself King of the Seven Kingdoms and bids all loyal men of virtue join him at Bitterbridge. The might of Highgarden marches beneath his crown of roses." The words settled on the morning like sleet. The gathered captains traded uneasy looks. Theon spat in the mud. Ned accepted the parchment without comment, broke the wax, and skimmed the wide flowing hand. Renly's tone was warm wine, but each flourish was a dagger. He folded the letter once, twice, then passed it to Robb. "A boy playing at banners," Karstark growled. "Let him play. When lions roar, flowers will." "Flowers feed bees," Manderley rumbled. "Reach grain keeps half the realm alive. If Renly joins the queen, we starve before we fight." Ned lifted a hand. "We will treat the matter at council tonight. For now we march." But in his heart he felt the road ahead narrow like a spear point. One brother crownless yet rightful, another crowned yet hollow, each day scraped by new knives of choice. By mid-morning, the vanguard reached a low hill overlooking coppiced woods. Gray wind froze, head low, teeth bared. A heartbeat later an arrow hissed past Ned's helm, thudding into the standard-bearer's shield. Outriders burst from the trees, Lannister crimson on mail that flashed dull beneath the clouded sun. The ambush was small, reckless, Swift northern horse smashed through before the lions could form. In the aftermath, Theon dragged a captive before the Stark banners. A half-grown lad with a wisp of gold hair and fear stark in his eyes. He tried to scurry back to Jaime. Theon shoved him to his knees. Little Mouse knows the maze. Ned crouched, studying the youth's trembling hands. Your name? Sir. Sir Kenneth of Tarbecum, Lord. The boy stammered. No knight's spurs graced his boots. Lies come easier than courage. You ride with Jaime Lannister? Ned asked. The lad nodded. Tell me what the Kingslayer seeks so near the bay. The boy's gaze flicked to the Northmen hemming him. Prince Joffrey's order, Lord. Burn stores, seize a grain, keep it from rebels. His breath hitched. They say wildfire is ready in the city. Queen means to drown the Blackwater in green flame. Gun. Muttered curses swelled. Ned straightened, signaled 2 guards. Feed him, bind him, hold him safe. The war is not his choosing. He strode toward the command wagons, wondering how many other boys would bleed for kings who wore crowns like playthings. Before noon, Maester Luwin's ravens brought more tidings. Renly's green armies swelling along the Rose Road. Highgarden spears gleaming under banners of golden roses and snared stags. Tywin Lannister massing at Harrenhal with 20,000 veteran foot. The map upon Ned's trestle table began to look less like parchment and more like a board of siege stones. Every valley a trap, every town a hammer poised. That night the lords gathered beneath oiled canvas lit by sputtering torches. Rain pattered overhead, soft but steady. Sir Davos Seaworth came at Ned's request, salt-stained cloak shedding droplets, eyes shadowed by long voyage and longer worry. When the council had taken wine, he laid a rough-drawn chart of Blackwater Bay before them. Lord Stannis lands on the morrow, Davos said, weathered finger tracing the crescent beach north of the river mouth. Dragonstone's levies, Storm's End Knights, and sell-sail companies under Salad Horse on. 12,000 strong, with siege towers and rams. He will strike the mudgate before the Queen may gather all her forces. He puts great faith in speed, Edmure Tully observed. Tywin is days away, but Renly less so. If those roses march north, then they may clash with lions first, Karstark argued. Or flank us while we bleed the city, Manderly countered. Voices rose, each imagining a different doom. Ned let them rail for a time, then set Ice's Point against the map. We ride at dawn to the Honeywine Ford, then south along the Kingswood edge. 3 days to the Blackwater. We meet Stannis beneath the walls and end this riddle before Renly or Tywin may answer. He looked to each face. If any man would rather bend knee to Highgarden's graces or hide behind river palisades. Speak now. No one spoke. Even Bolton's colorless gaze held a flicker of chilly approval. After the council, Davos lingered. Torchlight painted his lined face in amber plains. Lord Stark, he said softly. Dragonstone burns statues of the Seven. The Lady Melisandre says Stannis is Azor Ahai reborn, champion of fire. Some men kneel gladly. Others kneel from dread. But they kneel. Ned's voice was low. I kneel to no god who asks for children on pyres. The Red Woman whispers of shadows with swords, Davos confessed. I've seen things on that black isle that salt will not wash away. He drew a shaking breath. Yet Stannis is just, and Westeros needs justice. Justice untempered is a sword with no hilt, Ned said. Tell your king I will stand with him against the Queen's bastard brood. But if fire consumes the innocent, Winterfell's host will not march in its service. Davos bowed, relief and sorrow mingling. I will bear the words, Lord. When the smuggler was gone, Ned stood long before the dying coals, feeling the rain drum upon canvas like 1,000 distant arrows. Outside the wolves howled again, and he could not shake the sense that the long night of old tales walked beside them, unseen but nearing. On the edge of camp, a makeshift shrine of driftwood and river stones had been raised for the northerners who followed the old gods. Ned went there after midnight, hood drawn. The grove's single sapling weirwood was young yet, leaves pale pink under lantern glow. But its face was already carved, eyes full of quiet grief. Ned knelt, laid his palm to the smooth bark, and silently begged the nameless gods for dawns that would not break over pyres. The march from Maidenpool to the Kingswood border became a slog through unending drizzle. Carts mired, wheels cracked, tempers flared. At Duskendale, they found storehouses burned, fields salted, small folk hanged from orchard trees, work of lions retreating toward the capital. Robb rode ahead with a troop of outriders, cheeks streaked by wet wind, gray wind ranging wide. Twice they fought off bands of scavengers in ragged red cloaks, men too hungry or too lost to know loyalty. Each skirmish left Robb more silent. At campfires he stared into flames as though searching for a world he had only half believed existed. 3 leagues south of Duskendale, they overtook a baggage train fleeing King's Landing. Small donkeys laden with casks, driven by frail septas in mud-sodden sandals. Ned halted them gently. Their mother superior, a stoop-backed woman with eyes like wet slate, told of wildfire rumors, of alchemists chanting in vaults beneath the city, of Queen Cersei stocking cellars with lamp oil, should the usurper from Dragonstone breach the gates. Ned gave them an escort north to safer roads, but the image of green flames clawing the sky clung to his waking thoughts. One cold dawn as the host skirted the edge of the Kingswood, birds erupted from the trees and a hush rippled through the column. Ahead the great Jones foragers burst from underbrush, dragging 3 Lannister scouts bound with nettle rope. The captives spoke of Tywin's host marching hard from Harrenhal, of a son's shame stoking a father's wrath, of a debt of blood to be paid on stark steel. Ned sent the prisoners north under guard, better kings to judge them than soldiers in anger. That night Roose Bolton visited Ned's pavilion. Candles made his pale skin almost luminous, his smile a soft wound. He spoke of supply shortages, of men longing for hearth fires, of the wisdom in letting Stannis test the city walls alone, while the North regrouped in River Hole. "Withdraw now," Bolton murmured, "and we might end the war without losing another 1,000 sons." Ned's brow knitted. "If we forsake Stannis, we break our own word. Words can be reforged, lives cannot." "Some promises," Ned answered, "are the steel that holds the realm together. Bend them and every blade shatters." Bolton's eyes flickered. Annoyance. Amusement. But he inclined his head and left. Alone, Ned opened a sealed letter found on one of Bolton's couriers. Innocuous farm tallies, yet beneath the figures a smear of pink wax bore the imprint of a flayed man. Codes, perhaps, or warnings. He set the parchment atop the brazier's embers and watched the ink curl into ash. 2 evenings later, while rain lashed the camp, Melisandre of Asshai arrived with Stannis' vanguard, a column of cell sails flying black pikes adorned with the fiery Heartstag. She rode a pale mare skittish of wolves. Scarlet silks clinging to her like liquid flame. When she dismounted outside Ned's command tent, the shadows seemed to lean toward her, curious, hungry. Guards stiffened, even gray wind growled low. "My lord of Winterfell," she said, voice warm as coals. "I seek the man whose honor blazes brighter than any sword. In him I see the hint of promise. Winter's heart burning in the night." Ned stepped into the lamplight, cloak hoar-frosted. "You see what men tell you they desire." Her smile curved. "I see what the flames reveal. You march beneath cold gods. Yet the true war is not of thrones, but of dawns. Darkness rises in the far north." And Hugh. Ned's breath caught. Old stories flickered. White walkers, corpses with ice-blue eyes. "The North remembers its legends," he said. "But I fight the war before me. Then let fire guide your sword." She reached as if to touch his mailed hand. Heat pulsed from her palm. "Azor Ahai, reborn wields, light-bringer to shatter night. Stand with him, and the world is remade." "I stand with the living," he replied, stepping back. "Pray your flames burn true, priestess. Yet know that if they burn the innocent, I will snuff them with snow." "Now," She inclined her head, eyes glimmering like red rubies. Ice and fire, always the dance. Without another word she turned, vanishing into rain and darkness that seemed to swallow her whole. When Ned returned to his maps, Catelyn was waiting, hair damp beneath a hood. She had ridden from River Run with dispatches, Edmure reinforcing river crossings, Hoster's health failing swift as autumn leaf fall. They spoke in quiet tones of sons and daughters left behind, of Bran's slow healing, of Sansa and Arya whispered to be hostages in the Red Keep. Catelyn's voice cracked when she named Arya. No one had truly seen the girl in months. Ned rested his brow against hers and whispered promises he did not know how to keep. The joint host reached the Blackwater's northern bluffs beneath a bruised sky that smelled of lightning. Wild gorse thrived there, its yellow flowers drooping with rain. And from the heights Ned could see Dragonstone's black sails pushing upriver like wedges of night. Stannis' siege towers already dotted the muddy shores south of the Mudgate. Green flashes winked amidst the city walls. Alchemists testing wildfire. Bells rang in distant panic. Engineers from White Harbor, set to digging ramparts and trenches opposite the King's Road causeway, fashioning kill zones for any relief force Tywin might drive from the west. Every hour couriers splashed across shallow fords. Messages between direwolf and stag, between trout and hart, between scepter and sword. Muttered speculation followed Stannis' choice to fight beneath a banner half-stripped of the crowned stag, replaced by the red heart aflame. Soldiers argued in cook lines. Was Stannis still Robert's brother, or had some foreign fire god swallowed him whole? Ned met Stannis on a spit of rock overlooking the river, only their personal guards at a respectful distance. Stannis wore plain breastplate, dented and dark. His new banner snapped stubbornly behind. Rain beaded on his bald scalp. Close, the Baratheon lord looked older than Ned remembered, as if every sleepless night had chiseled another year into his lean face. "You kept your word, Stark," Stannis said without courtesy. "I misliked Devos' fears you might choose flowery treason." "I choose the realm," Ned answered. "Queen Cersei means to drown it in wildfire, Tywin to bleed it white, Renley to fracture it with soft smiles. You are Robert's heir, but some men fear the fires you court." Stannis' mouth twitched. "Men fear what they do not know, and what they know too well. I need their swords, not their prayers." "None." "Then remember the swords are held by men with children at home," Ned said. "Burn a single babe, and half your host melts away." "Let the flames judge," Stannis muttered, but his gaze drifted to the far-off city where green flashes licked the ramparts. "When the lions lie dead and the flowers trampled, we have words yet, you and I, about ruling justly. For now, hold the northern road. Tywin must not break our rear." They clasped forearms. An old, hard gesture. As they turned to leave, Robb galloped up, face flushed. "Father, riders from the garrison. Gold Cloak surrendered the gate of the gods. They say the queen and her children retreated to Maegor's Holdfast, leaving the city walls to Cersei's cousin. And," he hesitated, "they bring word of Arya. A baker's boy slipped her beyond the walls weeks ago. She may be south in the Kingswood." Hope flared and died in the same instant. The Kingswood teemed with sellswords, outlaws, broken men. Ned gripped his son's wrist. "We will find her when the city falls. Now hold fast." That dusk a gold-cloaked deserter led Stannis' engineers to a sally tunnel hidden beneath the river wall. Under cover of pounding storm they flooded the passage with lamp oil, set torches, and retreated. Green fire erupted from the battlements as alchemists countered with wildfire barrels. The sky turned a sickly emerald. Screams carried across the water. Yet the wall held. For 3 days, siege ladders rose and broke. Battering rams splintered. Arrows fell like winter sleet. Ned's host repelled 3 separate cavalry thrusts from the west, one led by Sir Kevin Lannister, another by rank hedge knights of the Crownlands, the last by an iron fist of Riverland levies whipped forward by Gregor Clegane himself. When the mountain's black destrier crashed dying in their palisade ditch, Clegane carved through pikemen on foot and vanished into dusk, leaving a trail of limbs. Roose Bolton saw opportunity in the chaos. His men collected the wounded lions, whisked them behind the second line of tents. By morning, none remained alive. Ned confronted Bolton, but the leech-pale lord merely bowed, claiming plague fear demanded mercy killings. There was no proof of flaying save whispers and missing skins. On the fourth night, Salador Sans war galleys slipped upriver under cloud, anchoring near the chain tower. Using rope ladders, Stannis' shock troops scaled the river wall while wildfire blasts distracted the defenders. By dawn, the chain tower flew the fiery heart. Trumpets blared along the Northman lines. Victory seemed near. Yet inside the walls, Cersei still held hostages. Lord Giles Rosby, Grand Maester Pycelle, dozens of nobles' children. She sent ravens promising to burn them if siege engines rolled 1 foot closer. Ned's captains argued in his pavilion until voices grew hoarse. Theon urged immediate assault. Hostages or live, the city burns either way. Manderley counseled negotiation. Karstark snarled that lions never yielded hostages alive. Bolton said little, but his silence felt oily. In the candlelit lull, Davos entered again, cloak dripping with river spray. Lord Stannis will storm at dawn, he said. He begs your strength at the mudgate. Ned asked only, does he beg the Red Woman's fires as well? Lightbringer has been forged anew, Davos said, unwilling. Eyes clouded. He drew the sword from the flames tonight. It burned with red light. A sword may burn, Ned answered, but justice is forged in cold iron. Tell him Winterfell comes, but if flames chase children down alleys, we shall quench them. When Davos left, Robb paced like a caged wolf. We cannot fight both the city and Tywin together, he said. If the Lannisters strike at our flank, they will, Ned said. Yet if we break the Queen before that hammer falls, Tywin may shatter upon her ruins. Robb stopped, jaw tight. And if we do not, then we hold. Ned's voice was quiet iron. We hold the line, we save who we can, and we make of our deaths a wall the innocent may crawl behind. Before first light, Ned walked the trenchworks. Snow fell again, small soft flakes that melted on oiled cloaks. He paused at a supply cart to speak with a young archer from Deepwood Motte, who wept despite biting his lip raw. His brother felled by crossbow 2 days past. Ned knelt in mud, pressed brow to the boys, promised that the fallen's name would be carried north in honor. The boys' tears slowed. Sometimes honor is only the speaking of names, Ned thought, and sometimes that is enough to lift a blade one more time. As dawn bruised the east, horns cried along the Blackwater like wounded beasts. Stannis' soldiers surged toward the mudgate. Shields raised against arrows, rimed with green fire. Ziga towers groaned forward. On the northern road, dust clouds rose, Tywin's van burning speed to save a queen who despised him. Ned had ordered reserve pikes to ready, horse to mount, archers to stake the flanks. Rain ceased, as if the gods paused to watch. Then the chain tower's drums thundered. The river boom dropped, opening Blackwater Bay to Sans galleys. Flotillas rode hard, soldiers leaping to storming ladders. At the gate of the gods, city wards smoked, green fire spreading uncontrolled, licking merchant stalls, eating wagons. Panic swept streets. Gold cloaks turned on each other. From Maegor's holdfast a single great bell rang. Slow and mournful. Echo of some old, deep grief. Ned spurred his courser to the forward ridge. From there he watched Stannis at the siege tower's crest, a blazing sword held high. Red flames licking steel, roaring like vengeance come to life. Around him men shouted, "Lord light!" and "Storm's end!" and "Stag and fire!" Yet for all that roar the city walls still bristled with spears, and behind Ned's own lines the rumble of approaching hooves warned of lions loose upon their heel. Ice felt leaden in his grip, as though every vow he had ever sworn lay folded within the steel. Behind him Robb raised the direwolf banner. Grey wind's howl rose, and carried across water and fire and broken stone. "Loose!" Ned commanded, voice steady as winter. Thousands of northern arrows darkened the sky. Where they fell, men died. Some lion, some stag, some poor bastard caught between. In that moment Ned knew the truth of every tale old Nan had whispered by Winterfell's hearth. Wars are not songs of heroes, but dirges of innocence ground beneath banners. Yet still he raised his sword and kicked his mount into gallop, the war cry tearing from his throat in a voice that seemed both ancient and newborn. "Stark!" he shouted, and the hills answered in a rolling thunder of feet and hooves and iron. They clashed with Tywin's vanguard on a field of trampled gorse, where the flowers bled yellow sap beneath war hooves. Shields buckled, pikes shattered, horses screamed. Ned cut through a mailed knight bearing a lion crest, then another, ice-cleaving chain and bone alike. Robb fought at his flank, gray wind a gray blur amid red cloaks, carving panic. The air thickened with the stench of mud and fear. Somewhere behind, Bolton's banners shifted, and for one breath Ned feared betrayal. But the flayed man surged forward to lock Tywin's flank, Bolton's pikemen ruthless and silent. Only afterward would whispers spread of prisoners dragged screaming into shadow. 3 times the lions charged. 3 times northern and river pikes hurled them back. Sun climbed, burning away mist. Along the walls, Stannis towers finally kissed stone battlements. His men swarmed over in tides of steel. Green fire blossomed beneath. Setting tower legs aflame, yet still they climbed. Ned glimpsed Melisandre atop a half-collapsed siege tower, red hair whipping, eyes alight with fevered joy. A gust of wind caught stray sparks, hurling them skyward like unholy stars. Hours blurred into killing. When horns at last bellowed retreat, Tywin's host dragged broken cohorts west, shields half melted by wildfire bursts. Ned did not pursue. Too many dead already, too many wounded choking the gullies. He rode the lines, ordering triage tents, water wagons, burial flames. Robb sat in the mud, helm off, face streaked with blood and soot that the rain could not wash clean. By dusk, the mudgate fell. Stannis' standard replaced the crowned stag of Joffrey, yet the city itself was a smoldering maze of riots and pyre cinders. Ned entered beside Davos at twilight, streets choked with ash and screams. Wildfire still burned green in pockets. Flames licked shops, stables, granaries. Small folk fled with what they could carry. And everywhere, gold cloaks knelt. Or died. In the throne room of Aegon the Conqueror, they found the Iron Throne empty, its barbs slick with half-dried blood. Cersei Lannister was gone, her children with her, spirited out through secret passages before the mudgate fell. In her place lingered the acrid scent of wildfire and the copper sting of purpose unfinished. Stannis ascended the dais, Lightbringer guttering red in his fist. The hall flickered with torch glow. Shadows writhed like wounded serpents across the sword seat. Stannis did not sit. He planted the burning blade before the throne, its tip striking stone with a hiss, and looked to Ned Stark. 7 kingdoms, Lord Stark, he said, voice hoarse, echo carrying to the rafters. Yet only one realm. Will you bend the knee and make it whole? Ned's gaze swept the shattered hall, the men standing wary with swords sheathed or half drawn, the soot-streaked faces of soldiers who no longer knew which king they served. He thought of children hiding in cellar dark, of the cold wind rising beyond the wall, of promises twisted by fire. Ice felt heavy at his side. Slowly he drew it, the blade whispering through air luminous with embers. The hall went still. "I will bend the knee," Ned Stark said, voice calm as the weeping water. "To duty, to justice, and to the living of this realm. If those things wear your crown, Stannis Baratheon, then I kneel." And with that he sank to one knee upon the blood-speckled stone, ice laid across his palms, head bowed. One by one riverlords knelt, Manderly, Karstark, even the flayed man banner dipping. The throne room thundered with the sound of men choosing, at last, a single road. Yet as Ned rose, Melisandre's voice cut the hush. "The night is long, my lord king." And the darkness that walks in snow does not kneel. A sort of ice waits in silence, and all these feuds are but sparks upon the wind. Her eyes found Ned's, red as coals. In their depths he saw Winterfell buried under storms, saw white shadows moving through black woods, saw a wall of night rising higher than any crown. He shivered, though the hall was hot as a forge. Beyond the city walls, wolves howled into gathering dusk, and far to the north a horn of 3 blasts echoed across frozen wastes where no living man should walk. The realm, for one heartbeat, seemed to hold its breath. And in that breath, Ned Stark understood that the war for thrones was ending, and the war for Dawn had already begun. Oh, hey! The Iron Throne's vast hall echoed with the clatter of boot heels and the low groans of the wounded being ferried outside. Ropes of smoke, still laced with the acrid tang of wildfire, drifted in through the broken windows. Their pale coils mingled with afternoon sunlight to paint the throne room in ghostlight. Ned Stark stood beneath those swirling motes, cloak streaked by soot and iron-black blood. Each breath stung his throat, yet he could not leave. Not until every last city guard swore new oaths. Not until each corpse was carried from beneath the barbs of the throne. Not until the ash-slick stones echoed with the sound of order returning. Maester Cresson, summoned from Dragonstone, toiled beside Pycelle's temporary replacement, a timid, beardless novice. They moved through ranks of barely conscious soldiers, to pour poppy drafts, to poultice half-melted flesh, to bind shattered limbs into crude splints. Amid that grim procession marched Melisandre, unharmed, crimson silks unsoiled. Her bare feet never seemed to slip on blood. Her eyes glowed like banked coals each time she paused by a dying man's cot. Sometimes she murmured a prayer in the strange tongue of Ashai. Sometimes she merely laid her warm palm upon a brow, whispering promises of Aralor's mercy or of purifying flame. The line between the two mercies felt, to Ned, perilously thin. Past midday, Davos Seaworth pressed through the ruin to find Ned. The Onion Knight looked 15 years older. His cloak and hair were stiff with river spray ash. Grime penciled the lung-deep lines around his mouth. He carried a sheaf of stained parchment. Provisions lists, Davos rasped. Dockside warehouses, some untouched, some burned or plundered before we breached. If your Northmen still hold the King's Road, we can ferry flour into the city by cart. Ned leafed through the parchments. How many days' bread for the small folk? 10. If rationed by strict quarter, Davos answered. Perhaps less. Wells along the Street of Sisters are fouled with wildfire runoff. Lord Stannis has set masons to dig new ones, but we dig first, Ned cut in. Bread can be stretched with turnips. Thirst kills faster than hunger. His gaze wandered to the distant arch that opened toward Flea Bottom. Even from here he glimpsed spirals of fresh smoke. Looters or fires left unchecked. Probably both. I'll send Manderley's engineers to oversee wells. And carpenters. What's left of them? Davos nodded, but his eyes flicked up the length of the throne behind Ned. Iron blades twisted into a vast spiked crown. Does the throne sit quiet today? For now. Ned shifted his shoulders beneath heavy mail. Lord Stannis meets the captains at the chain tower, planning docks and blockades. He rules from decks and parapets, not from seats. Now, perhaps better so, Davos muttered. That chair eats better men. Footsteps rang. Robb strode toward them, hair damp, cheeks gray with ash. Father, he said, voice strained. The Queen's alchemists have sealed themselves in the Guildhall of Wisdom. They threaten to ignite the vaults if any man approaches. Ned cursed beneath his breath. How many vaults remain? 6 large cellars and 2 minor, Robb recited. Enough wildfire to wipe the city clean. Too much, Davos whispered. They would burn with their green demons rather than yield. Ned turned, and in his eyes Robb read the order well before it left his lips. Summon Sir Davos Smuggler Cruz. We breach the Guildhall roof tonight. Quiet. We draw out firepots with rope and sand before those madmen know we stand above them. Any who surrender are spared. Any who light so much as a torch. He let the silence end the sentence. Robb nodded, but his jaw trembled. For a heartbeat, Ned saw again the boy absent-mindedly chasing Bran through Winterfell's beech groves. Now he bore a wolf's cloak and a man's sword. But the boy still looked out from behind his eyes, half startled at the weight of steel and sorrow. "Do you trust Davos, men?" Robb asked. "I trust Davos," Ned said. "And I trust that Wildfire's hunger leaves no second chances." Robb left without further question. When the echo of his strides faded, Ned discovered Davos studying him. "You carry half a kingdom on those shoulders, Lord Stark," Davos said. "Half," Ned answered. 2/3 crumble, the rest is ash." Stannis held his war council in the cavernous guardroom atop the chain tower. A single circular aperture in the ceiling admitted a shaft of sluggish gold evening light, casting motes like drifting sparks upon the long plank table. The king's captains ringed it, Lord Valerion in purple-trimmed silver mail, Salador San resplendent in sapphire silk, despite the grime, Storm's End knights with battered surcoats, and, in stern array opposite them, Northmen and Riverlords. Stark, Blackwood, Manderley, Greyjohn, Edmure Tully. Roose Bolton stood aloof near the wall, eyes half-lidded as though he listened to some distant song only he could hear. Stannis himself leaned over the map, fingers stabbing each quill-pin token. "Renley marches from Highgarden with 40,000, he said. Lord Tyrell at his side. They've halted at Bitterbridge to wait for Rowan levies. 2 weeks, perhaps 3, before they reach the city." The Greyjohn slammed a gauntlet on the table. "Let them come. We'll stack Rose corpses higher than these walls." Salador San fluttered admonishing fingers. "Roses bear thorns, good lord. And bees sip them. The Reach could starve us by summer if we sit behind half-burnt gates." Manderley's heavy beard bristled. "Patience." 15,000 Northmen hold the Roserad crossing north of Bitterbridge. Only if Tywin stays cowed. Edmure Tully pointed to the King's Road token far west. "He rallies again at Hayford. A fresh hammer on our anvil." Stannis' jaw tightened. "My brother's treason and the Lion's pride. 2 blades at once. We cannot bludgeon both. We choose." All eyes swung to Ned. He felt the weight like a cold stone upon his chest. Slowly he moved around the table, glancing at each banner. "Storm's End stands behind us now," he began, voice low but carrying. "The North and Riverlands are bloodied yet unbroken. Renly wages war on paper. He puffs his numbers with peach-fed pages and sworn sons of merchant lords. Tyrell's grain fills his wagons, but Tyrell's will wavers. If we break Renly before Tywin arrives, we strip the Reach from the lions." Karstark nodded fiercely. "Cut the green stalk, the yellow petals curl. But march out too soon," Davos warned, "and we leave the city open to Tywin's counterstroke." Ned gestured toward the ship, tokens clustered at the mouth of the Blackwater. "Salador guards the bay. Manderley's cogs anchor upriver laden with grain. We leave garrison enough to hold the walls. Then we ride. Swift. Heavy. Through the Kingswood's eastern tracks. 2 good days' march brings us behind Renly's vanguard. We seize the ferry at Long Table, force him to turn. Tywin cannot cross Hayford without facing Stannis' fleet cannonading the riverbanks. We create a wall of water behind us and a wall of iron before the Roses. Then, a hush followed. Stannis regarded Ned with eyes like chips of cold sapphire. "You gamble lives on rivers and timbers, Stark." "All war is a gamble," Ned answered. "But steel and honor weigh the dice." Stannis' mouth curled half a fraction, the closest he came to approval. "So be it. We ride at dawn." Bolton spoke then, soft as a knife pulled free of flesh. "Who commands the garrison, your grace? While you hunt Roses?" Stannis measured the faces. "Lord Commander Stark holds the city." Ned stiffened. "Your grace? You saved it from green hell," Stannis said. "You will keep it. Until my return the Iron Throne sits empty. The realm must see order before it sees crowns." A flicker of something like relief crossed Ned's face. He bowed. Yet inside he felt the clamps tighten. A city of smoldering unrest. Wildfire vaults. Hostages vanished with the Queen. And now the bulk of their armies marching away. Order sat on a blade's edge, and that blade rested upon his palm. Hours later, Ned climbed the winding stairs to the Tower of Baelor. The Septi's once white dome bore green scorch marks. Idols of the Seven lay toppled across cracked marble. Storms had carried much of the smoke away, but soot still filmed every surface. Silent sisters moved through the nave with lanterns, sewing shrouds to cover hundreds of corpses collected from the streets. Ned paused before a row of bodies. Among them lay boys in gold-trimmed cloaks, ragged sellswords, small folk in patched wool, a girl no older than Arya clutching a charred doll. Ned knelt beside her, lifted the doll's remaining arm, then lowered it gently upon the girl's unmoving chest. A step behind him stirred. Ser Barristan Selmy, a ghost of a man now, features gaunt, silver hair ash-dusted, approached. He had fought beside Stannis' vanguard after gold cloaks barred him from reaching Cersei. His white cloak was blood-spattered. "I begged the queen for this never to be," Selmy whispered. "She would not listen. She listens only to her own fears." Ned rose slowly. They walked between pews toward the shattered altar. "Have you seen any sign of the children?" "None. Spies say she rode north by River Skiff before dawn yesterday, perhaps toward Maidenpool." Barristan's lips twisted. "She has Jaime and Gregor Clegane. With such hands she might tear any castle gate from its hinges." Ned exhaled. "She will head to River Run, or further, to the Freys maybe, or to Tywin. Let Stannis chase Renley first. The lions will circle soon enough. Then?" Barristan stopped before the cracked marble representation of the warrior. Its stone sword lay snapped in two upon the altar cloth. "When Robert took this city, I watched princes die beneath that throne. Children like these." His voice trembled. "Is this what kingship makes of us?" "It is what war does when pride fuels it," Ned said. Then, softer, "I tried to end it once with words. They answered with steel." He turned from the broken idols. "Help me keep these people alive, sir. We cannot mend a shattered realm upon funeral pyres." "Then so." Barristan bowed his head. "You have my sword until honor itself deserts me." That night, Grey Wind led Robb through a scorched alley along the Street of Flower. The direwolf's nose pressed low, hackles bristling at every shifting shadow. Robb's lantern cast jittering pools of gold across cracked walls. Twice he thought he heard a furtive scurry, but each corner revealed only empty crates and soot-smeared cobbles. At the alley's far mouth, a hunched figure rose from behind a toppled cart. Robb halted, hand on sword. Grey Wind snarled. "Easy," said the stranger. She wore mud-caked breeches, boy's tunic, and a shapeless hood. Yet beneath grime and cuts, Robb glimpsed a face as familiar as the rising sun. "By the gods, Arya." His voice cracked between disbelief and relief. His sister's eyes widened, wild with flight. "Robb?" she rasped. "You're here? In armor?" He stepped forward, but she darted back, gaze flicking over the roofs. "Can't stay. Gold cloaks hunt me." And others. Black cloaks with red hands. Robb's heart lurched. "You're safe now. Father is here. The war is won." "Wars never end," Arya muttered. "They just hide behind doors." Yet she allowed him to grasp her arms. Tears streaked her ash-grimy cheeks. "They killed so many, Robb." "Sansa." "Alive," Robb said quickly. "Held at the Red Keep as guest. We'll free her soon." He looked down the street. "We must go." "Father will?" A hiss of quarrels split the night. Grey Wind lunged, snapping one from the air, but two more clattered off the cart behind. Robb spun, sword out. Figures in dark leather darted from the shadow of a baker's shop, eyes gleaming through hood slits. No sigils, only red-painted palms on their chests. Arya shoved him aside as another bolt sang past. She yanked a thin blade, the old training sword Syrio had carved for her, from her belt, feet sliding into the water dancer stance. Robb had no time to marvel. The assassins closed silent as spiders. Grey Wind crashed into one, tearing. Robb barreled at the second, steel ringing. Arya danced beneath a slashing dirk, stabbed upward into the man's armpit. Robb's foe parried with uncanny speed. Poison-black lips curled as blade met blade. But Robb was stronger. His cutlass hammered the assassin's dagger aside, then punched through mail. The man staggered, gurgling. A last hooded killer vaulted a rain barrel toward Arya. She leapt back, but her footing slipped on a slick of soot. Robb bellowed, lunging. Too far. Gray wind struck like a storm, jaws closing on the man's throat. Blood sprayed across the wolf's silver fur. Silence fell, broken only by Arya's ragged breaths. Robb pressed fingers to each attacker's neck, lifeless. He yanked the hood from one. The face beneath was foreign, tattooed tears beneath each eye, ears lobes pierced by shards of black iron. Not gold cloaks, Robb murmured. Erlor fanatics, Arya guessed. They tried to take me near the sept 3 nights past. Said the red woman dreamt of a wolf girl who would slay their king. Robb's stomach nodded. Come, now. He wrapped a cloak around her, whistled gray wind to heal. They hurried through the winding lanes toward the Red Keep, each corner watched by new unseen eyes. Ned received his children in the Tower of the Hand, just past dawn. Arya flew to him before speaking, burying her face in wool and leather. He crushed her tight, as though to meld her bones with his. When her shaking eased, he knelt, cupped her soot-streaked chin, and looked into storm-gray eyes wide from too many nights alone. You've grown feral, he said softly. I thought your mother would tame you. Cats aren't tamed, father, Arya whispered. They learn. His throat closed. And what have you learned? That steel answer's more honest than silk. She gestured to the little blade still sheathed at her belt. The city is a pit of ghosts. Ned turned to Robb. The killers. Robb laid the red palm tunic on the table. Cultists or assassins, he said. They bled like Dornishmen. Filth-tongued. Meant she. Ned's brow furrowed. He looked at Arya. Did Melisandre know you were here? I only saw her atop the siege tower, Arya said. She stared at me through the fire, like she knew my name. Ned rose, cloak swirling. Stay here. Eat, wash. Take 2 guards wherever you step. Robb, double sentries around the tower. And send word to the king. The city walls may keep out armies, but not shadows. Robb bowed and left. Arya lingered. Father? She asked. When does this end? When we have peace. He kissed her hair. And peace begins with hard roads. 12 days passed in hard roads. Stannis' host thundered south. Stag banners visible from the Blackwater's bluffs, only by dust plumes at dawn. Within King's Landing the work of healing felt as endless as the sky. Streets cleared of wreckage, wells dug, bread lines kept from riot by rows of spears. Gold cloaks who swore new oaths were paired with Northmen to patrol nightly. Those who would not swear were stripped of arms and sent north in chains, some to Mole's town mines, others to the wall. From the docks, Ned supervised the unloading of Manderley's grain. He insisted the sacks be weighed and stamped by neutral scribes. He posted Stark men at each granary to prevent black market thieves. When fishmongers balked at crown-fixed prices, Ned sat cross-legged on the cobblestones beside their stalls, eating stale brown bread until townsfolk gathered curiosity enough to shame the merchants. By nightfall, prices fell. Yet each dawn still brought news of murder. Bodies found in flea-bottom gutters, throats slit, strange symbols carved into chests, circles crowned with naked flames. Melisandre would appear at the pyres, crimson robes billowing, proclaiming the victims tainted by darkness. Her followers thronged the city, singing hymns that spoke of shadows, cleansing fire, and the one true king. To Ned it sounded less like worship than a match held to tinder. On the 13th sunset, he summoned the Red Priestess to the Tower of the Hand. She arrived alone. In the fading light her rubies glowed, as though lit from within. You called me Lord Stark? She purred. I did. Ned folded his arms. Assassins marked with burning palms attacked my children. Their corpses bore your god's sign. Explain. No. Melisandre's eyes shimmered. Roar burns deception from flesh. Those men saw truth and feared it. They served their own shadows, not mine. Your truth nearly killed my daughter. Ned's voice cut. Your shadows carve circles on corpses. The night is dark, Lord Stark. She stepped closer. The scent of smoke and cinnamon curled from her sleeves. And dark things scurry within it. I would cage them if I could. But some lamps must be broken that brighter fires may blaze. My lamps are living souls, Ned growled. If any fire of yours touches them again, I will see it quenched. Her smile held sorrow and wonder. You are ice in motion, Eddard Stark. But even the strongest ice cracks when river floods rage. She lifted 2 fingers to the ruby at her throat. The flame showed me a dire wolf among roses. When rose thorns drew the wolf's blood, winter itself howled wrath. Beware, Bitterbridge. He studied her a long breath. I watch men's steel, not flickers and embers. Men's steel is brittle. She inclined her head. The Lord owes thanks to his daughter for slaying the shadows sent to claim her. The flames favor her dance. Now. Ned's spine chilled. You know her face. I know her light. Melisandre turned in a swirl of scarlet, vanished down the stair, leaving the torch smoke smelling suddenly of cold ashes. Ned gazed out the window westward, toward distant thunderclouds. Somewhere beyond the horizon Stannis' host stalked Renly's roses. What thorns would bloom? Ned could only fear. On the march south, winter drank the nights colder despite summer's lingering calendar. The Kingswood track wound through gnarled oaks and pale weirwood saplings. Stannis' vanguard moved like a steel tide, but they shed men daily to arrow ambushes. Renly's outriders, nimble Stormlander archers under Sir Courtney Penrose, wove through the trees, loosing shafts at baggage wagons, harrying foragers. When Stannis deployed knights to chase, the archers slipped away like smoke. The 5th night, as campfires flickered low, Renly's envoys rode under banners of green and gold. Lord Mathis Rowan and Sir Loras Tyrell parleyed in a hastily raised tent. Robb Stark sat to one side beside the Great John, listening. Renly's terms were grand. He would wed Sansa Stark to secure the north, promise representation in his small council, spare Tywin's broken forces in exchange for Stark approval. Stannis answered by naming Renly a traitor. When Sir Loras argued that the realm needed a king beloved by smallfolk, not merely rightful, Stannis rose, slammed gauntleted fist on the table, and thundered, "Beloved kings rot the realm with sweet lees!" Rowan paled. Sir Loras's lips thinned. They rode from camp before dawn. Robb overheard Rowan mutter to his knight, "The river only flows one way now. Blood." That afternoon, Robb wrote a quick note north. "Father, the roses will not bend." Stannis' patience thins. "I fear shadows behind every tree." The courier left under Stark guard. 3 days later, Bitterbridge's rolling fields lay ahead. Renly's army spread there like a lush tapestry. Rows of green cloaks, gold helms, bright pavilions, war horses caparisoned in fresh yellow daisies. At their heart stood a colossal striped tent. The Tyrell rose stitched beside the crowned stag. Trumpets rang across the valley. Sir Loras led an honor guard to the field center, planting spears wreathed with flowers. Stannis' lions formed opposite. Shields dented, banners scorched. Soldiers gaunt but relentless. Rain clouds brewed low, rumbling. Thunder echoed like drums of war. Nightfall brought unease. Wind whipped canvas flaps, carrying the heavy scent of storm. In Stannis' command tent, Robb listened to Davos urge patience. "Let the storm pass, my lord, then strike when archers cannot loose." Stannis shook his head. "No storm births delay. Storms birth victory." Outside, black clouds split with jagged white. Rain lashed the pikes. Somewhere ahead, Renly's campfires glittered. Then, just past midnight, a hush fell so sudden, even timpani thunder stilled. Soldiers glanced skyward. An unnatural calm suffused the air. From the direction of Renly's tent erupted screams. Torches flared. Shapes rushed. Horses reared in terror. A solitary cry rose above the chaos. The king is slain. Lightning tore the sky. Brief glimpse of men milling, some kneeling, some fled into night. Stannis' guards stared across the dark. Robb felt grey wind stiffen, lips drawn. Dawn found Renley Baratheon cold beneath silk. His throat gaped open. No sign of assassins, no tracks. Only the scent of blood and candle smoke. Ser Loras knelt by the bier, rose cloak soaked crimson. When soldiers tried to guide him away, he shook them off, silent, eyes hollow. In Stannis' camp, whisper spread that some shadow with a king's face had passed the lines at midnight, melting through silk like water. Davos found Robb near the riverbank. His voice shook. I stood guard at Stannis' pavilion. At the hour Renly died, the king's chamber glowed with red light. I heard heartbeats that were not a man's. He swallowed. If this is victory, it cost too much. Robb felt the howling distance between his father's stern code and the unseen blade that carved Renly's life in darkness. He thought of Melisandre's murmurs, of circles carved on corpses. A dire wolf among roses. In the chaotic dawn the Tyrell host fractured. Some knights knelt to Stannis. Others fled west with Loras. By noon Bitterbridge lay empty of banners, save the fiery heart stag. Ravens reached King's Landing 2 mornings later. Renly dead, Reach in disarray, Stannis victorious with minimal bloodshed. Soldiers cheered, but Ned's stomach twisted at the manner of death. When Arya asked if it meant the war was over, he forced a smile. One branch pruned, many leaves remain. Melisandre walked the ramparts at dusk, head bowed as though in prayer. Ned confronted her beneath a flickering torch. You told me to beware Bitterbridge, he said. I read the flames, she answered, eyes reflecting torchlight. The wolf stands yet unharmed. You speak in riddles while men bleed in shadows. Did your god send the thing that killed Renly? Lor's hand moves through chosen vessels. Answer me plain, priestess. Her gaze lifted, red pupils rimmed with gold. Justice has many faces. Renly stole a crown. The night returned the theft. Innocence lay in that camp too, Ned growled. No innocence stands between a usurper and his doom. Save perhaps your own. She reached to touch his cheek. He caught her wrist, felt warmth like banked flame. One day ice will ask fire for mercy. Then you will remember this night. No. He released her, turned away. Behind him, her soft laughter drifted, more sorrow than mirth. Elsewhere, the world spun. In the far north, Jon Snow stood atop the wall's icy rampart, watching pale lights flicker beyond the haunted forest. White shards drifted on midnight wind, no mere snow. Dead men rode again, and the horn of 3 blasts cried across frozen wastes. Yet south, lords clung to thrones like drowning men to driftwood. At River Run, Catelyn wept for her brother Renly. Even estranged, he had been kin. She wrote to Ned, they say a shadow killed him. I fear for our souls when shadows breed swords. At Harrenhal, Tywin read of Renly's death, and smiled a lion's smile. He sent riders to Highgarden bearing seeds of vengeance. Marry the girl queen, restore Tyrell pride, and choke Stannis between rose and lion. And upon the stepstones, a black-sailed ship ghosted through pre-dawn mist. Aboard, a pale-haired woman held 3 infant dragons. She had heard of kingly wars across the narrow sea, and tasted already the shape of ash in her mouth. Her dragons shivered with hunger. Fire calls to fire. In King's Landing, Ned Stark knelt before the heart tree sapling transplanted into Maegor's courtyard. Soil from Winterfell packed around its roots. He whispered north-tongued prayers, asking the old gods to grant him sight clear of smoke. Wind rustled the fledgling weirwood's pink leaves. In their rustle Ned almost caught a whisper. Winter marches. He rose, heavy with foreboding. As he crossed the yard, Ser Barristan approached, white cloak freshly laundered. A rider from the wall, Barristan said. Maester Aemon's seal. Ned broke the wax, scanned the letter. His heartbeat faltered. White Walkers, he murmured. 2 ranging parties lost. Others sighted near the fist of the first men. Barristan paled. Old stories. Old no longer. Ned looked toward the north gate. though leagues lay between. We war on crowns while death herself walks. He folded the parchment, mind racing. Stannis rode triumphant. Tywin plotted. Melisandre preached flames. But none of them saw the real enemy. The realm wasted breath on iron chairs while the long night crept south, silent and cold. He strode for the Tower of the Hand. A council must be called, one to set aside banners and quarrels, to march steel and fire northward before ice swept them all. But first, he would need a king who listened. A glance skyward showed midday sun blazing, yet Ned felt winter's breath across his neck, as though shadowed wings beat somewhere far above. Within the tower, he found Arya sparring with Robb. Grey wind circled, tail twitching. Arya's blade darted. Robb parried. Sweat flew. They laughed. Brief, true, bubbling up like a spring. Ned watched a moment, letting that laughter wrap his heart in thin warmth. And he vowed, silent, that if winter's storm came crashing, these children would stand behind walls of unbroken promise. He stepped into the training circle. Enough for now, he said. They halted, panting. Ned lifted ice, resting its flat across his palm. The realm needs swords and hearts. To face what rises. Train harder, but remember why you wield steel, not for crowns but for the living. Robb nodded, eyes steady. Arya wiped her brow, grinning wolfishly. They would fight monsters with him, Ned thought. Shadows, lions, walkers, whatever the dark flung against the light. Outside, crows cawed from scorched rooftops. Far to the east thunder boomed, yet no cloud marked the sky. Ned met that empty horizon, and for the first time since Winterfell's gates had closed behind him, he allowed a single prayer to cross his lips. Let dawn find us. Then he turned back to the chamber, to letters and councils and grim work. Each step forward a blade's width closer to the true war. The war that did not care for Baratheon stags, or Lannister lions, or even lone deer wolves. Ice and fire would meet at last, and all the tales of heroes would not matter, save for the ones still living to tell them. The raven's warning spread through the red keep like frost beneath a closed door. Ned Stark stood before the council table in the Tower of the Hand, parchment in hand, every word from Maester Aemon etched into the deep lines around his eyes. Outside, the narrow window shafts of dawn were still iron-gray, though torchlight in the hall flickered like restless spirits. Harwin opened the door to admit Sir Barristan, Davos Seaworth, Master Cresson, and the Riverlords who remained to hold the city. Sir Brynden Tully in his worn black trout surcoat, Lord Wyman Manderly smelling faintly of smoke and spice, Lady Mage Mormont with her bare-headed mace slung across her back. They took seats in grim silence. Robb leaned against the wall, arms folded. Grey wind curled at his feet like a living promise of savagery. Ned read the letter aloud, voice measured but unavoidably raw. Rangers gone. Horns thrice. Dead walk. Light the beacons. Maester Aemon Targaryen, Castle Black. Menarwendi. Indy. When the last syllable faded, it left a hush as deep as a godswood pool. Even the hearth seemed to swallow its own crackle. Manderly cleared his throat. Maesters speak in riddles often enough, but this. His fingers drummed the table. The wall has stood 3,000 years. The tales of White Walkers frighten children. They frightened my father when he took a chill in the snows, Maege Mormont growled. Only fools laugh at claws they have never seen. Davos shifted, eyes shadowed. The Night's Watch begs for reinforcements every winter. Rare enough that they raise more than a lantern. If old Aemon writes thus, it smells of true peril. Then sand. Sir Barristan traced the scar on his cheek. And yet, our own peril presses close. Lord Tywin gathers hostages for a marriage pact with Highgarden. An army of roses and lions could descend on us within the moon's turn. Ned set the parchment down. The dead do not pause for politics. Brynden Tully leaned forward. If Tywin and the Tyrells cross the Blackwater before Stannis returns, the city may fall. We cannot march the garrison north. A choice must be made. One threat faced, one suffered. Then shunned. Robb pushed off the wall. My lord father, the North swore to keep the Night's Watch whole. Let me ride. I'll lead the Mormont spears, the Umber giants, the Karstark horse. We know snow better than any southerner. Ned's gaze softened, but the steel returned an instant later. I need you here. I cannot guard your sister, this city, and a king who plays at fire while shadows stalk the alleys. If Tywin breaks our walls, there will be no north left to send south or north. We hold fast until Stannis returns, or until the wall falls. Bah! He turned to Davos. Send ravens to Deepwood, White Harbor, and Bear Island. They'll raise fresh levies and sail for Eastwatch. A month's voyage with good wind. Take my letters, sealed with the dire wolf and the stag. Davos accepted the scrolls. And the city. Ned exhaled slow. The city we gird in stone and iron. Every mason who can lift a chisel will mend walls. Every stable boy old enough to string a bow trains at dusk. Water tunnels under the Guildhall will be sealed, and the wildfire vaults. Cressen's voice cracked. We have removed half the clay jars with sand and salted water. The rest, gods help us if they crack. Then we post 20 men to every jar, Ned said. If they die, they die. But the fire dies with them. He looked to Brynden. The River Kings hold the Trident crossings? The Red Fork is ours, Brynden confirmed. The Freys sniff the wind yet, but they remember Black Walder's broth. They won't gamble with their bridges again. Good. Ned touched the rider-headed pommel of his dagger. We live in the jaws of 3 beasts. Best we teach our teeth to bite harder. Nander once. Snow fell in the courtyard that evening, an impossibility in the southern spring, yet there it drifted, fine and dry as northern spindrift, fading to nothing before it wet the flagstones. Arya caught a flake on her glove, watched it vanish, eyes wide. Robb tilted his face skyward, felt the cold sting. Strange weather for King's Landing, he murmured. Strange times, Arya answered. She practiced her footwork across the yard, needle blade flashing. Every other step she glanced at the battlements, half expecting shadows to slither under the parapets. Catelyn arrived 2 days later in a rain-battered carriage, escorted by Ed Muir's outriders. Mud spattered her cloak. Exhaustion hollowed her cheeks. But when she beheld Ned upon the keep steps, her spine straightened, and she strode into his arms. They exchanged scarce words before she learned of Renly's death, of Tywin's alliance, of Aemon's letter. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. They mean to choke us here, she said soft. Break us with siege or burn us with pyre. Ned led her past the smoky hall into quieter chambers. They pored over maps until whisper of dawn brushed the shutters. Each new shift of banners hammered the same truth. Wars breed wars, and cracks spread like frost fractures in spring. On the 15th day, after Bitterbridge, Stannis returned. The procession rode through the Gate of the Gods at noon, banners torn by storm winds. Knights' cloaks trailed crusted blood. Yet the men's eyes shone with a strange cold fervor. Stannis dismounted in the throne room before Ned could greet him. He strode to the Iron Throne's foot, drew Lightbringer from its dragonbone scabbard, and held the flaming sword high. Its red glow painted the barbs crimson. Renley is ash, he declared. His host scattered. Highgarden bleeds pride. The realm bends. He lowered the blade, extinguishing the flame with a twist of will. Or illusion. Now the lion must break. Ned stepped forward, voice steady. The lion pairs with roses. Tywin rides with 40,000, Tyrell near 20. They march by the Roserad. They plan to catch us behind our own walls. Stannis Yaw worked. Let them come. They will find gates barred with fire and iron. Then see. Fire may burn foes, Ned said, or burn the kingdom we hope to rule. He handed Aemon's parchment to Stannis. The North calls. White walkers stir beyond the wall. If the realm bleeds itself here, we march naked against death. Stannis read, eyes narrowing. Old men's tales. I wore on flesh and treason first. Your Grace, Ned said, I have stood on the wall in winter. I have seen what ice does to flesh. If Aemon warns, listen. Melisandre glided from the shadowed arch. The cold shadows wake. Only the prince that was promised, may smother them. Her gaze clung to Stannis. R'hllor's sword burns brighter in the long night. Stannis looked between her and Ned, then to the razor-edged throne. We march west to seize Highgarden's grain. When lions and roses sunder, we grind what's left to dust. Afterwards, north, if need be. He sheathed the sword. The wall can wait a season. No, Catelyn said from the stair. All turned. She descended, eyes fierce. My son Bran dreams of wolves howling across frozen ridges. He sees dead things move. A mother knows when fear is real. Delay, and you fight winter in summer's tatters. Then Bishau. Stannis' lips thinned, but something in her voice stalled him. He gestured to Davos. Summon Saladhor. We hold council at dusk. There may be roads north by sea. Beyond the wall, at the fist of the first men, the Night's Watch huddled in a rough ring of stones half buried in old snow. Jon Snow gripped his sword, Ghost beside him, eyes burning red in the half-light. Wind whistled like a mournful horn through the ruins. Far out on the frozen plain pale shapes shuffled, too many to count, gathering beneath a sky devoid of moonlight. The cold there pressed deeper than winter. It crept into bone and thought alike. Sam Tarly trembled beside Jon. We can't hold if they surge. We hold, Jon answered. Or we die, and the realm follows. He pulled the iridescent dagger he had dug from the fist's snowdrift days earlier. Dragonglass black as midnight, edges shimmering. Light the signal. 3 blasts. Behind them Gren struck flint to torch. The flame sputtered, caught, flared. The horn's triple wail carried into night. Across the ring of stones, torches sparked. Brothers with axes of rune-etched bronze emerged from deep caves, gifts of Craster long hoarded, blades meant for the cold. Jon watched the pale army stir. Ice-blue eyes blinked alive. They began to walk. In King's Landing the wildfire vaults were finally emptied. Ned oversaw the last clay jar lowered into a brine pit beneath the river gate. Sweat sheened every brow, though a chill breeze knifed through the tunnel. When the jar settled with a soft splash, he exhaled. Seal it, he told the masons. Double brick. Above, the streets buzzed with rumor that Tyrells marched under a white rose banner separate from Lannister red, each camp wary of betrayal. Spies whispered that Mace Tyrell demanded Tyrion's head, while Cersei bartered Sansa's hand for Highgarden's banners. Roserad hamlets said 2 great hosts kept an uneasy night's distance, watching campfires like enemy stars. Ned summoned Littlefinger, who had slithered back to the court like a cat to warm milk. Which way blow reach winds? Ned asked. Littlefinger smiled thin. Where gold winks brightest. The Tyrells love coin as well as crops. Lannister chests overflow. Now. And Highgarden dukes want their girl on a throne. Ned tapped the map. Dotty. If they turn on Tywin, we may yet break siege. Or they turn on you, Littlefinger warned. A rose scent hides thorns. Cut the stem. Stem bleeds, Ned said. I'll risk the fragrance. He dispatched ravens south with offers to treat. Bread for the hungry, amnesty for knights. No chain for Mace's pride. He sealed them with stag and direwolf entwined. Politics felt like bloodless war, each wax crest a gamble. Stannis rode north before dawn 3 days later with 5,000 picked men. Baratheon Stormguard, Manderley mariners armored for rivers, Karstark lancers who had served coastal patrols. They took ships at Maidenpool, sails swollen toward Eastwatch. Davos commanded the Sea Lion. Melisandre remained with the city, claiming flame must guard the cradle of the king's rebirth. Ned watched the black sails slip past the horizon. The wind smelled of brine and distant winter. He wondered if the sea would swallow men alive before ice could claim them. In the king's absence, Tywin's host crept nearer, testing the river defenses each dawn. Ziga towers rolled behind hedgerows. Pike arms shimmered. Ned sent crossbow bolts tipped with iron barbs to harry scouts, and burned every orchard within 10 leagues to starve their slow encirclement. The smoke painted sunsets a sullen red. Each night, Arya perched on the rookery balcony, counting the plumes like warnings. Robb drilled archers on the ramparts. Grey Wind paced, restless. Catelyn organized soup lines, helped midwives in makeshift hospitals. Ser Barristan trained smallfolk volunteers, the old knight's sword still swift despite grief. Bolton remained outwardly obedient, yet whispers trailed his men. Prisoners vanishing, flayed skins washed in river shallows. Ned confronted him beneath the tower stairs. "My law forbids torture," Ned said. "Your law ends where war begins," Bolton replied, voice like ice over still water. "Fear hobbles lions. Fear corrodes men," Ned answered. "Should I smell flayed flesh again, I will hang the skinner. Flay the flayer." Bolton's pale eyes glittered. "You rule through mercy. Pray mercy withstands steel. Then shall." The Tyrell envoys arrived under flag of truce. Sir Garland Tyrell, earnest, broad-shouldered, smelling faintly of mint, and Lady Olenna in her cart, shawls fluttering like motley butterflies. In the rain-scoured plaza before the Sept of Baelor, Ned met them, Brynden and Catelyn at his side. Olenna eyed the blackened stones. "King's Landing looked ill enough under Robert. War has made it a leper's den." "It lives," Ned said, "and may yet be healed. Not with Lannister leeches sucking." She sniffed. "My son Mace cups ears like a hound at treat time, but I pinch his ear when needed." Her gaze sharpened. "What price your pardon for our late dalliance with Renley?" "Withdraw your knights from the lion camp," Ned answered. "Open your storehouses to the small folk. Acknowledge Stannis king," he raised a hand at her scowl, "or at least refrain from further crowns. In return, the North and Riverlands. Guarantee your lands, your titles, your trade routes, and the girl Sansa, betrothed to your grandson Willis when winter ends." Olenna considered, sharp eyes flicking between them. "No bells for Joffrey?" "Joffrey is bastard born of incest," Brynden said. "The realm knows now. His claim is ash." "Very well." Olenna's smile was a thin petal. "But we Tyrells feed half the realm. Offend us. Crops rot mysteriously." Catelyn inclined her head. "Then let friendship seed those fields." They parted with chilly courtesies. As Olenna's carriage retreated, Garland lingered. "My brother Loras still carries grief," he told Ned. "If he rides against you, strike quick but merciful. He blames Stannis for shadow murder." "Stannis blames treason," Ned replied. "But grief carves deeper than truth. I will remember mercy." On the wall, ravens arrived bearing Stannis' sigil 3 days before the nightfall of the battle yet to come. Jon stood with Commander Mormont as the parchment unrolled, snow rattling against their cloaks. "Hold fast. Fleet sails with men and food. Burn beacons nightly." Mormont grunted. "Food we need. Swords more." That eve, as ice wraiths gathered beyond the ridge, Jon descended the switchback stairs to the old library. He spread maps of the gift, marking each village. If Stannis broke the ice sea, if his men came by land through the gorge, they must find the earth ready. Jon drafted orders for watchtowers, beacon pyres, dragon-glass caches. When he emerged, snow lay shoulder-high against the gate. His breath came white. Ghosts padded beside him, fur dusted with ice. Above, the sky shimmered aurora green. Jon thought of the fire priestess in distant King's Landing, and wondered if the flames she worshipped could burn through this sky of ice. Tywin Lannister chose dusk for his assault. The day had dawned clear. By evening a yellow fog rolled off the river, cloaking the valley in damp shroud. Horns wailed, muffled shapes of siege towers lumbered like petrified giants. Ned stood on the city wall, Robb beside him, Arya perched farther along, needle drawn. Archers notched shafts, torches flared behind murder holes. Yet midway, across the fields, the lion host slowed. Out of the fog floated white banners, each bearing a single golden rose. A murmur passed along the walls. Riders emerged, Mace Tyrell at their head, Loras flanking, banner chains held aloft. Tywin's van turned, confusion rippling. Lord Mace raised a horn, blew 3 sonorous notes toward the city. Then, from behind the Tyrell ranks, broke a single column of Highgarden foot. They advanced on the Lannister flank, spears lowered, not at the city, but at Tywin's unprepared line. Chaos exploded. Lion shields pivoted, arrows flew. The Tyrells plunged into the Lannister right. Trumpets clashed. In moments fog became blood mist. Ned watched, stunned. Flowers and lions devoured each other halfway between city and wall. Catelyn joined him, breath white. Olenna's word holds, she said softly. Mace may sign the order, Ned said, but Olenna wields the quill. Through the swirling fog appeared 2 lone riders, galloping under small banner of parley. Loras Tyrell and Sir Kevan Lannister. Dot. They reigned beneath the battlements, shouted for safe passage. Ned signaled. The gate creaked open. Guards led them within. In the torn hall, they knelt before Ned. Kevan's face was pale. My brother surrenders, he said. On condition his children's lives are spared. Goldcloaks will stand down. Sir Loras bowed stiffly. And the murderer of my king goes north to face a greater darkness. Highgarden pledges 5,000 spears to the wall. Shock rippled the council. Arya, watching from the gallery, felt a weight lift from her chest. But a new fear settled. If Highgarden must shield the wall, how dark the storm there must be. Ned helped Kevan to his feet. The queen is abroad with Jaime, he said. Tell Tywin, his crimes follow him, but his children are no coin for our quarrel. He turned to Loras. I will give you Renly's killer when I know the killer's name. Pray the gods give me truth. Mason. Loras's eyes flickered between forgiveness and fury. At last he nodded. Highgarden will stand. The realm cannot bleed in 10 directions. That night, under a sky bruised with violet clouds, Ned Stark ascended the steps to the Iron Throne. He did not sit. Instead, he set ice against the steel barbs and met the eyes of the gathered hall. Northmen, river lords, Tyrell knights, Lannister lords in soot-stained cloaks, small folk representatives summoned from guilds, even the silent sisters who tended the dead. The realm bleeds, he said. Children bleed. And beyond our quarrel waits a night older than crowns. I call banners not for one king, but for the living. Every man who can wield steel rides north within the fortnight. Women strong enough to mend wounds come after. Grain flows to the wall. The wall is the sword in the darkness. Without it, we fall. He looked to each face until they looked back unflinching. Stannis sails. We march. And if the Night's Watch stands when dawn breaks, then we may return and argue crowns again. His voice lowered. But I think none who face that dawn will care for thrones of iron or barbs. Silence seized them, then rippled into murmurs, into a low thunder of assent. In the back of the hall, Melisandre watched, ruby at her throat pulsing. Did fire see its mirror in ice? Hard to know. 7 days later, the King's Road roared beneath a tide of hooves. Northmen in furs, Stormlords in battered cuirasses, Tyrell halberdiers in new-dyed cloaks, marched shoulder to shoulder. At their head rode Ned Stark with ice across his knees, Catelyn beside him, astride a grey mare, Arya on a spirited gelding behind, Robb flag-bearing, grey wind loping. The city gates shrank behind them. Above, a single snowflake drifted, slow, deliberate, crystalline. It fell upon Ned's gauntlet and did not melt. He closed his fist around it. Ahead, the Kingswood whispered, leaves glazing with rime. The road north stretched like fate itself, beckoning them toward a wall of stone and ice, and to a darkness that no war song could drown. In the haunted forest, Jon Snow cut through a wight's frozen sinews and rose gasping, Ghost snarling at his side. Brothers fought, falling, rising. And at the line where pale dead met failing torches, a red flame flared on the horizon, the first of Stannis' beacon ships cresting the frosted sea. Hope flickered. Dawn. Somewhere began its slow climb, and in King's Landing the Iron Throne waited. For who could say? Silent as an empty scabbard, its barbs faintly rhymed with frost that did not melt, though the night was warm and the hall still stank of smoke. Ka. The cold bit like a whetstone against every exposed edge of metal as the columns stretched up the King's Road. North of the Trident the land turned white beneath late spring snow squalls, ragged, wind-driven gusts that cut visibility to arm's length 1 hour and vanished the next, leaving glittering banks along stone fences and dead hedgerows. Ned Stark rode at the fore beneath a crust of hoarfrost that etched even the wolf's head brooch on his cloak. Beside him, Catelyn leaned forward in her saddle to shield her eyes from blowing ice. Each breath from man or mount curled in the air like pale silk before shredding in the wind. Behind them banners whipped, Manderley's white merman flecked with snow, Blackwood's dead weirwood tree stark as a gallows, the golden rose of Highgarden now quartered with a direwolf in token of new alliance. The Tyrell halberdiers were unused to such cold. Green silk scarves turned rigid with rime, and more than one Reach Knight hacked blood into the furs at his mouth. Yet they kept pace. Fear was colder. Robb rode the column's left flank, a rearguard of Karstark horsemen strung behind him. Gray wind loped far ahead, a gray apparition threading through frozen brush, circling back whenever a swirling gust hid the road. Arya refused wagon riding. She kept her spirited mare just behind Brynden Tully and Sir Barristan, needle at her hip, eyes scanning the roadside ditches for anything that moved too slowly or too silently. At dawn on the 5th day she discovered a man frozen upright against an alder trunk, one of Roose Bolton's foragers, still clutching an empty wineskin. His eyelids had iced shut in a final blink. His tongue protruded black as crow feather. The company buried him beneath piled stones and rode harder. At Harrenhal's blasted courtyard Tywin Lannister dragged a bloody cloak from his shoulders, flinging it onto sputtering embers. The once white cloth bore rose petals of embroidered gold, treachery's trophy. Kevan's recounting of Highgarden's defection rang again behind his eyes. Old stone cracked beneath his tread. The broken towers seemed to mock him with their black-mouthed windows. He addressed Sir Gregor Clegane and Sir Adam Marbrand before the guttered forge. We march in 3 days. The Riverlands will bleed to feed our host. Blackwood first, then the twins. If Frey balks, flay dots. If Tyrell dares cross the Mander, burn. And bring me Cersei. Oh. Gregor's visor hid what passed for expression. The Queen rides hard. Cranagman slowed her on the Green Fork, but she'll reach Maidenpool ahead of the Starks. Tywin's gaze flickered, tinder to anger. Send 400 outriders, every man who knows bushcraft. My daughter does not fall into Stark hands. And Jaime? Marbrand asked. Jaime will keep her alive. Tywin turned, cloak flaring. For now. Eastwatch by the sea staggered under Stannis' arrival like a rotten pier under sudden surf. Sleek galleys of driftmark and lice rammed their frost-rimmed hulls against the ancient quay, while sell sails flung mooring lines that snapped like whip cracks in the gale. The smell of tar, pitch, and strange eastern spices spilled across the icebound harbor, stirring ravens from the cliff roosts. Jon Snow stood atop the eastern parapet beside Lord Commander Jorah Mormont as the first stag banner unfurled, heavy with sleet. 12 ships, Jon counted, reminding himself to breathe beneath the iron taste of winter. Perhaps 3,000 men. Ghost paced at his boots, white fur slicked to his flanks by wet snow. Enough to stem a breach, Mormont rumbled. If they prove steady once they see what tries that breach. He tapped the parchment bearing Ned Stark's seals. Your father rides hard and brings half the realm. Jon closed gloved fingers tighter on the frosted merlin. If half the realm comes north, what's left to feed Winterfell? Wolves aren't fed by hearth bread, the old bear growled. They hunt, taught, and so will we. Nendero. Stannis mounted the stairs by second bell, flanked by Lord Valerion and a knot of grim knights. Dragonglass axes and spears, freshly quarried from Dragonstone's obsidian cliffs, filled 4 coffers borne up by sweating squires. Stannis pressed the hilt of a black-bladed shortsword into Joan's palm. "Valyrian grip, dragon glass edge," he said. Voice raw as new cracked ice. "Cut true, Snow." He turned to Jor. "We burn the forest tomorrow night. Clear every tree within bowshot of the fist." Mormont bristled. "Fire is life up here. You'd strip it?" "Mem sour." "I'd trade a life for 1,000 dead," Stannis answered. "Or do you fancy whites lurking under every pine?" Jon glanced over the parapet toward the dark swath of haunted forest. He imagined the crash of axes, sparks climbing into a black sky while pale faces watched from deeper hollows. Fire or ice, one must devour the other. 90 leagues south, Ned Stark's column reached Moat Cailin beneath a sky of hammered pewter. The causeway beyond lay submerged in ankle-deep meltwater. Broken flagstones jutted like crooked teeth above black pools. Fog steamed from the peat bogs, knitting a low wall of white across the neck. Reed men in mottled grays appeared out of that fog. Frog spears raised, shields painted with weeping faces, reeds braided through their hair. Jojen Reed bowed. "The Crannog remembers the wolf. Passage is yours, but tread quick. Dead things slough through water slower than men, yet they come." Howland Reed emerged, girded in alder bark cuirass. The Queen fled east of the Fever River 3 nights past. Ironborn war galleys escorted her skiff. She rides with 200. Spears tipped in black iron, blades forged in pike's salt. "Nen sow." Caitlyn's lips thinned. "Victorian Greyjoy." Ned's jaw set. "Bolton rides ahead at dawn with 300 light horse. Tell him to stay the hunt. Alive, the Queen stops Tywin's fury. Dead, she spurs it." Arya muttered behind clenched teeth. "Alive or dead, she and Joff both deserve an edge." Ned fixed her with a look that chilled more than the wind. She subsided, but the muscles in her jaw quivered like bowstrings. They bivouacked that night on the drier knoll between Blackwater channels. Highgarden cooks boiled cattail roots with salted beef. Manderley's quartermasters broke out barrels of pickled cod. Around one fire, Reach spearmen traded bawdy songs with Karstark scouts. Around another, northern lads watched in wary fascination as a Tyrell minstrel teased melody from a pearwood harp, until frost rhymed the strings. For a moment, the war felt far away, held at bay by the simple alchemy of song and warmth. Yet the neck whispered. In the still watches before dawn, Ned's sentries heard distant splashes and slow breaths rasping through threads, like bellows behind parchment walls. When torches flared, nothing stirred beyond the water's glassy skin. But reeds lay bent, crushed under prints shaped like human feet, yet wider, with talons scoring the mud. At Eastwatch, the conflagration began at dusk. Scores of pine trunks, stacked in crisscross ramparts, caught tinder sparks hurled from Stannis catapults. Flames leapt skyward, devouring sap-sweet resin, snarling with winds that roared in from the shivering sea. Jon Snow stood inside that circle of fire, eyes watering, ghost-pressed flank against his thigh. Beyond the scorched ring, white shapes advanced. Silent, inexorable. Their frost-dulled armor glimmered with reflection of orange, yet they shied not from heat. Arrows tipped with dragon glass hissed. The first white, that breached the line, lost half its torso to an obsidian broadhead, collapsing in a hiss of steam. But 2 more stepped through the gap, pale hands clawing, and behind them came 6, 10, 20. Farther back, among skeletal birches, tall white walkers glided, eyes bluer than frozen stars, blades like shards of moonlight. Jon met one head-on. Valyrian grip dragonglass sliced through ribs brittle as river ice. The corpse burst in a cloud of white shards that rattled like sleet upon Ghost's hide. Another lunged. Jon pivoted, blade undercutting, jaw set against the stench of carrion caught deep in permafrost. The world became only that circle of orange light and the cold beyond. Time broke into fragments of strike, parry, splinter, melt. Then thunder boomed, a drumbeat unleashed from the belly of the sea. Over the firelight's roar came horns, deep and rolling. Dark sails breasted the eastern horizon, their hulls set with braziers spitting sparks into snow-laden gusts. Stannis' second wave. And behind those spear-like masts rose another silhouette. Enormous. A squat, wide-decked barge ringed with scorpion ballistae, each bolt head drenched in pitch and aflame. Bolts screamed overhead, trailing fire. Where they struck, the ice plain erupted in geysers of slush and ember. Whites burned. The fire line held. And through the smoke rode Lord Manderley's armored marines, wading waist-deep to hack with dragonglass glaives, while singing a chanty of White Harbor. Feed the fish, cold as maiden's kiss. Jon glimpsed the old bear swinging a bronze rune axe into a walker's crystal blade. Shattering both weapons. He saw Satin, the shy steward, drag two brothers from beneath a toppling pine. He saw Ed Tollett decapitate a dead ranger with one stroke, then complain of splinters. And amid that chaos he felt a pulse, a deep, glad certainty, that the wall still stood, that dawn might still dawn. Word of the battle reached Ned on the shores of the long lake, as the column camped beneath gray sheets of sleet. A raven lighted on his tent pole near midnight, shaking icy water from black feathers. Maester Leuven cracked the tube, lips moving with each frantic line. When he finished, he passed the parchment to Ned and sank onto a stool, shivering with more than cold. Eastwatch stands, Ned told the gathered captains. Relief sighed through the canvas like a lost wind. But the dead press west of the wall. Torment giants binds wildlings, retreat toward the shadow tower in terror. And Stannis calls for every dragonglass blade in the realm. Down? Brynden Tully traced the map with a gloved finger. Gulltown's castle smiths could forge spearheads from obsidian if we ferry stone. No time, Manderley said. We mine Dragonstone's glass as we march. Small shards, arrowheads. Men must learn to loose true. Lady Mage thumped her mace. Bear Island women fletch sharper than any city girl. Send word south. Arya listened, eyes bright with a feverish determination. She tugged Jon's dragonglass dagger from her belt, mailed to her by Samwell Tarly weeks before, a gift of thanks for her father's promise. She held it close, testing its black shimmer. Knives for ghosts, she whispered. On the 12th morning after leaving the Neck, they reached Winterfell. Or what had been Winterfell. Smoke still drifted from the shattered gatehouse. The great hall lay half collapsed. Its roof burned away to blackened beams that pierced sky like rib bones. Snow filled the courtyard, blanketing charred timbers, hushed even the caw of crows perched on the broken rookery. The weirwood in the godswood yet stood, though its lower branches were stripped by flame, and its red leaves hung limp under a crust of frost. Rickon Stark emerged from the Hunter's Gate, with Shaggydog stalking huge and black at his side. His hair fell wild to his shoulders, grime streaked his cheeks. Behind him lumbered Hodor, bandaged arm bound in sling. Osha shadowed them, spear in fist. When Rickon saw Ned, he broke into a dead sprint, boots crunching over broken flagstones, throwing himself against his father's breastplate, with a sob torn raw as war. They buried Maester Luwin that evening beneath a cairn of hoary stone where his blood had darkened the snow. Bran's carved cradle of roots lay toppled near the heart tree, burned when the Bolton men had torched the library tower before deserting south to join their lord. Arya knelt among the ashes, shoulders shaking, until Robb drew her upright. We rebuild, he whispered. Stone by stone, like father did after Brandon's rebellion. Rickon kept to Ned's shadow afterward. Speaking little save to Shaggydog in low growls. Yet that night, as the northern host camped within Winterfell's blackened walls, something like contentment glimmered in his eyes. Family had returned. Bolton arrived at dusk with 500 lances, his armor bright as untouched snow. He knelt, offered Ned 2 prisoners. Sir Aenys Frey, and a silent hooded girl claiming to be Cersei's handmaid. Her wrists bore raw rope burns. Her eyes flicked from face to face with wary malice. Queen vanished beyond Barrowton, Bolton said. Greyjoy's outriders shield her path west to the rills. My men lost trail when dead wolves, whites, fell upon them. More joined the hunt north of the Barrowlands. Nendaro. Ned studied Bolton's pale hands, unscarred by rope or sword. You left a smoking hall in my house. Bolton's eyes never flinched. I reclaimed Winterfell from ironborn thieves. Fire was their doing. Robb's voice snarled behind Ned. A lord cares for the seat he guards. Bolton inclined his head. A lord protects a realm. Stone may be rebuilt. Stone remembers, Ned said. Take your lances to the wall. Prove your loyalty in ice. Bolton smiled. Sharp. Silver. Ace the hand commands. He rose, bowed, and withdrew. Cloak billowing like a bloodless flag. Snow swallowed hoofbeats soon after, but the echo of that smile lingered long beside Winterfell's ruin. A fortnight later, the combined host crested the ridge overlooking the last river. Ahead lay a white wilderness so vast, it seemed the world's canvas before any brushstroke of life. Column after column tramped down to the frozen ford. Tyrell halberds, Manderley spears, Blackwood bowmen, Karstark horse, Bear Island warriors, wrapped head to toe in seal fur. Rickon rode in front of the Mormonts, clutching a small dragon-glass dagger like a talisman. Arya and Nymeria padded alongside Night's Watch recruiters, gathering orphans from each village they passed. At dusk ravens spiraled overhead, rustling like black leaves against a steel-gray ceiling of cloud. Jon Snow met them south of the Gift, astride a rangy Roundsey crusted with iron-colored rime. His hair whipped in the gale, his cloak was Night's Watch black, torn and patched. He dismounted before Ned, dropped to one knee. Ned dismounted too, lifted him in an embrace fierce enough to crack mail. No words bridged what their eyes already spoke. Love, relief, dread. Ghost-nosed, shaggy dog. Grey Wind sniffed them both, issued a low, approving growl. Deerwolves recognized pack. Behind Jon rode Stannis in thick mannish furs, dyed midnight blue. He lifted gloved hand in curt salute. The wall stands. His gaze swept the thousands massing behind Ned. But not for long if we don't hold the night. Ned answered with a nod heavy as a fallen tree. Then we hold. They marched the final league up to Castle Black in driving snow. From the pass between the wind-swept hills and the frost-fanged foothills, the wall appeared, a looming, jagged glacier of pale sapphire that swallowed half the sky. Torchlight glimmered atop its crenels like embers clinging to the rim of a frozen cauldron. As the host approached the gate, horns sounded. One long blast, then another, then three in quick succession. The tremor ran up every spine. Men seized spears. Deerwolves bristled. The massive yet clanged open. Dolorous Ed emerged, lamp raised, face sooty. 3 blasts, he called grimly. Rangers returning, dead men on their heels. He turned toward the darkness north of the wall. Light your hearts, lads. Winter knocked, and we opened the bloody door. Inside the wall's shadowed torchlight flickered feverishly. Black brothers hurried with dragonglass bolts. Reach bowyers restringing yew longbows. Northerners smashing ice for fresh water. Arya climbed the massive wooden stair to the Lord Commander's tower, breath pluming in the cold. Below her she saw a river of soldiers filing through the tunnel, heard the groan of ice overhead as heavy gates lowered into place. On the parapet, Jon waited, eyes glued to the line where moonlit snow met the night sky. Arya stood beside him, their shoulders brushing. "Think we'll see dawn?" she asked. "Some of us," Jon said. His mouth twitched in a sad half-smile. "If dawn's kind." Far beyond the foothills, a faint blue glow shimmered, pulsing, slow, inevitable. As they watched, the light spread across the horizon, swallowing stars like a rising tide. Ghosts fur-ridged. Grey Wind answered with a snarl. Shaggy Dog flung back his head and howled. A long, keening lament that carried down the wall, through the tunnel, into every heart huddled in the cold. One by one, other wolves took up the call. And within that chorus, Ned Stark felt House Stark's first vow echo, to guard the realms of men. He turned to the assembled captains, Stannis with Lightbringer already flaming, Manderly gripping his whalebone mace, Maege Mormont's daughters arrayed in bearskin, then raised ice high. Moonlight spangled across the blade. The vast frosted silence answered with a hiss of distant wind. "Stand to the line," he commanded. "Archers knock. Lances set. Let the living show these dead what it means to breathe." Flames guttered along the ramparts, torches held ready to light pitchpots. In the valley beyond the Gate of Ghosts, so remained till morning, blue lights multiplied, each a lantern of hunger behind a dead face. The army of the night formed ranks, silent but for the creak of frozen sinew. Snow began to fall. Slow, deliberate, like white petals scattering over a grave. It drifted onto helms, into open mouths, across the broad spine of the wall itself. Jon tasted it, felt it burn his tongue with impossible cold. At his side, Arya whispered a prayer not to the Seven, nor to the Red God, but to the old faceless shadows of death. The horn sounded once, defiance. Then twice, warning. Then thrice, doom. And the battle for dawn began.